Hey humans, Bob here, welcome to another Marvel Avengers guide video. Today we're going to go over the stats in game and just how they can affect how you play so that you'll know just how to forge that perfect build. Before we get going with this one though, don't forget to drop a like, it massively helps to get more eyes on the video and it's completely free. Great, now that's out of the way, let's go over exactly what we're covering today. Now, I love Avengers, but I'm not shy when it comes to calling out the decisions that were made during its creation. One of my biggest peeves, in fact, is the extremely strange idea of calling a bunch of stuff something it's not, like health being called willpower and stamina being intrinsic, amongst many others. So, I'll be going over each stat and explaining its industry standard counterpart, but also what it affects when it comes to your moveset. This video is also a prelude to another video about what stats I think you should build for each character, so keep an eye out for that one, and subscribe if you haven't done already, so you don't miss it. Right, let's dive into it. Might in Avengers is usually commonly known as strength, and increasing this stat will increase your effectiveness with melee attacks, which includes all of light attacks of current heroes, as well as heavy attacks, except those of Iron Man, Hawkeye, and Kate Bishop. This stat is not subject to diminishing returns, which basically means if you want more melee damage, you just stack as much might as you like and keep adding to your damage. For the build nerds, might scales at a rate of 1 to 4.5 melee damage. Precision in this game is essentially the ranged stat, sometimes also referred to as accuracy as well, but there's no change to your actual accuracy in this game, so ranged seems the one that makes the most sense. Increasing this stat will improve the damage output of your ranged attacks, making you more dangerous from a distance when using aimed range attacks, or even some heavy attacks from the likes of Iron Man, Hawkeye, and Kate Bishop. Precision is also not subject to diminishing returns and scales at a rate of 1 to 4.3 range damage. Proficiency is the combination of two stats that you might see in other games. They are critical chance and perk chance, which is exactly what you'd expect. Critical attacks can double your damage when they land, and the sheer range that perks have to buff your character, like the bread and butter of all builds, the damage buff, which not only significantly increases all damage output, but also boosts crit chance too, should not be overlooked. That said, this stat does suffer from diminishing returns. The general suggestion is to avoid investing too much more than 150 into proficiency to ensure you get the best out of it, without sacrificing other stats. Interestingly, proficiency also scales your melee and ranged rating slightly too, but be aware it does not increase the base damage as that is dependent on might and precision respectively. Valor in Avengers is a strange one and is also a combination of two things. In the game they're referred to as heroic effectiveness, which I can only think to refer to this as a special stat as it governs your special abilities, or heroics in Avengers case. As well as this, Valor also includes and also scales critical damage. The fact that this stat increases both your heroics and the critical damage they can output and that of your other attacks should mean this stat is a general priority if you're focusing on a high damage build as the other stat to focus on. Thankfully, this stat is not subject to diminishing returns, so that you could stack this sky high and not worry about it tapering off. It scales at a rate of 1 to 5.3 for heroics unless you're using Thor, then it scales at a 1 to a whopping 16.3 for heroics, and at a rate of 2 to 1% for critical damage. As with proficiency, Valor scales melee, ranged, and the heroic rating, but only directly affects the base damage of heroics. So, this is an interesting one to unpack. Resolve encompasses two things as well, both your max willpower and willpower recovery. If you missed it earlier, willpower is an Avengers terminology for health. So, if you find yourself being a little squishier than you'd like, focusing on resolve might help. Again, thankfully not subject to diminishing returns, and at a scale of 1 to 43 for willpower and 1 to 1% for recovery, resolve is much better than the other defense stat, resilience, when you're looking for survivability. Speaking of resilience, let me explain exactly what it is. Simply put, it's defense. Resilience increases your armor percentage, which in turn reduces the damage that you take. As mentioned before, it's not as effective when looking at survivability, and it is also affected by diminishing returns. Scientists suggest going no further than 75 on this one. This one is actually super cool. Intensity covers both stun and status meter damage, and what that is basically how quickly you can fill the stun meter that appears over an enemy's head, which indicates that you can perform takedowns on them or other signature attacks from specific characters. As well as this, it also governs how quickly you can fill a status meter to apply a status effect on an enemy, which can have a variety of benefits, depending on the status you inflict, but also means you can trigger the battery effect even quicker, if you put a little into this stat. Even around 40 on intensity can give you a 40% boost on status meter damage. On top of all of this, intensity also handles your status resistance, which means if you're as fed up of those cryo keepers freezing you in place as I am, you should probably have at least a little invested into this stat. Even with all of that said, intensity is unfortunately the most susceptible to diminishing returns. Keep that in mind if your gear keeps rolling high on this stat. Anyway. Hey Dev. Hey buddy, you doing that stat video? Yeah, that's the one. Did I mess something up again? No, of course not, little guy, but did you tell them about the battery effect video? Little guy? Oh wait, no I didn't actually. If you guys didn't see it already, don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel for a video where I explain the battery effect, as well as a deep dive into the native status effects of each character. Hey, I'm still here, man! Anyways, that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it or at least found it useful. If you did, please like, subscribe. If you want to come and talk about this live or anything else to do with Avengers, come and check me out over on twitch.tv/BobDuckNWeave or connect with me on socials at BobDuckNWeave. You can find the links in the description down below. Also, a big thank you to the wonderful humans who manage the science table, as well as Fate Walker and Revealing Too Much for their insights, and Riffian Gaming for supplying the lovely photo mode shots featured in this video. Thanks so much, and as always, stay safe, stay awesome, and I'll see you all soon. Bye-bye.